Hi, welcome to Diamond Delight Edibles. My name is Liz if this is the first time you're joining, and for the rest of you guys, welcome back. So the other day I asked in the community there if you wanted to learn how to make these designer cannabutter white chocolate truffles, and enough of you responded, so here we go. So check these out. Whoops! Ah! Falling overboard. Check out the eyeballs. I did those for coming up for Halloween, and then we just got the Rasta ones that I did, and then inside we've got the three color chocolate truffle. Now, one thing I just want to let you know is we only use about 1 to 2 tablespoons in the chocolate truffle of the cannabutter. If you want to make them stronger, what you can do is to make a small infusion of shortening, because we use shortening to thin out our chocolate, and you can add it to chocolate without affecting it. The candy melts, not real chocolate. That's a whole other story. So you can make a small infusion, a quarter cup of shortening to maybe 1 to 2 grams of your decarbed herb. You can follow the small infusion video that I do have there in my library. But other than that, let's jump in and let's get started. All right there. So for our designer cannabutter chocolate truffle, white chocolate truffles, what we're going to need is about 1 to 2 pounds of the melting chocolates by Wilton's or Merkin's, depending where you come from, or there's other brands as well. But you want to use these. Now, I have tried working with real chocolate, like real milk white chocolate and real dark chocolates and stuff. And I'm going to tell you, there's a reason those people go to school and have a fancy title of chocolatier. That stuff is so hard to work with. It is so delicate, and you have such a little degree of time that you can use, and if it's not exact, then it just doesn't pour nicely. So I found using the candy melts, they taste amazing. They taste great, and they work amazingly. So for us amateurs to even medium, probably a lot of experts use them as well, but I'm sure chocolatiers don't. But I said they're great to use, and it's what I've gone to use for doing the decorative truffles and for making them as well. Great taste. I found it to be milder and not as waxy as using real white chocolate. Okay, so for our actual truffles, what we're going to need is 225 grams of the white melting chocolate, sorry. You're going to want a half a cup or 4 ounces of heavy cream or whipping cream, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of your cannabutter. I wouldn't use much more than 2. If you do, 1, because it's going to affect the taste, and 2, it's going to make them too creamy. However, if you do, compensate. If you go over the 2 tablespoons, add about 1 teaspoon of shortening. I'll get more into explaining exactly what shortening does, but it will help not break the integrity of your truffle. It won't make it too creamy. It's still going to keep that firmness to it. And what we're going to need then, I said, is some shortening. And the reason for the shortening is, as you can see, this is at room temperature, and you can see how solid it still is. Well, that's basically what's in your melting chocolates versus cocoa butter. It's pretty much the only difference is they don't use cocoa butter. And this is a lot more stable. It's great for using if you need to thin out your chocolate melts, for adding your colors if you want to make them really, really drippy without affecting its final drying product. I've got some of the dark chocolate here that I'm going to make our black with. The same as the candy melts. And then I've got for colors. Now for working with chocolate or candy melts, regardless, you need to use an oil-based color. You can't use those liquid gels because they're water-based. You have to use an oil base or a powder. Now, if you use powders, well, you don't just dump it in, your color in, because it's going to be very muted, and you're going to get grains in your chocolate, which you don't want to do. So I'm going to show you the trick here of melting some shortening and pre-mixing your color first, and then we'll add that to the chocolate. Some other things that you can use for decorating, and I'm just going to make a few different ones to show you, is the edible glitter spray. It's really super fun. I've got silver and gold. They're really pretty for doing Christmas type decorations on the dark chocolate. They come out really nice. And let me see, what am I missing here? So here is where I've got some black that I made up with the shortening and the powder. But as I said, I'm going to actually show you the demonstration of it. That's all we need for that. I'm going to get into the equipment. Seems to be a lot more equipment we need than actual ingredients. So let's get into that, and then we'll get all the stuff put together. All right, so for our equipment, what we're going to need is one small pot for making our truffles. You're going to need a spatula. Now, I do recommend using the solid spatulas. Silicone is best to use for the reason that it doesn't retain any water. Water, as a lot of you probably know, is chocolate's mortal enemy. Even if you're working in the chocolate and the candy melts, it will still seize your candy. So the solid spatulas are better because no water can hide in them. Whereas these spatulas with the wooden and the handle on top, water can slip up inside, as well as wooden handles can retain moisture in them. And so you can think it's dry, you're stirring your chocolate away and not understanding why it's seizing, and it can just be because the handle itself is damp. So you want to try to avoid those. And what you want for, especially if you're going to be making the fancy truffles, you do want to get a polycarbonate mold. These are a hard plastic mold. They withstand temperatures, and your chocolates come out beautifully in these. They'll come out shiny. If you use silicone molds, they're not going to be shiny. They're going to have a dull finish to them. So I do highly, if you want to be making those, or there are plastic molds like these. They're not necessarily polycarbonates. They'll work as well. Try to avoid the silicone though when it comes to that. We're going to want we're going to use some paint brushes for decorating the insides of our molds. You're going to want several disposable piping bags, or if you make your own, you can do that. You're going to want a set pair of rubber gloves or latex type gloves for when we're removing the chocolate from the mold. We don't want to avoid getting fingerprints. You've got these beautiful chocolates, and then you go and stick your thumb on it, and it just takes it away. So when you're handling them, you want to definitely use rubber gloves. You're going to want several bowls for depending on the number of colors that we're using. I'm going to be making the three colors, the rustic colors for us, the green, red, and yellow. So I'm going to need 3 of those at least for making our different truffle colors. Saran wrap, because I'm going to show you a really nifty trick what to do, how to create the 3 colors all together really simply. A kitchen scale for measuring out your chocolate. So you definitely want to go by weight. So for our truffles, we're using 225 grams. And we're going to need a larger piping bag to fit 3 things in. Like I said, you'll see. So you may need a larger one. And if you want to avoid using several bags, you can use couplers so that you can just change out tips if you need, or the bags come out easily and you can just use those. That's about all I think that we need for our chocolate here. And so I'm going to jump into making the truffle part first. And actually no, I lied. We're going to decorate these shells first so that they have time to set, and then we're going to make up our truffles and put that together. All right. All right, so I've got my white chocolate here, all melted. So there's several ways that you can melt your chocolate. You can do it over low heat on a double boiler, or you can do it in the microwave in a glass microwave safe bowl. And if you do it in the microwave, you want to start out at 30-second first interval, then go to 20 seconds, 15, and then 10. And each time you want to take it out and thoroughly stir it until it is fully melted and you have this texture, this consistency. Now, if you do that and it's a little bit clumpy, it means you've overheated it a little bit. So you want to, what you can do to fix that is to get an immersion stick or a hand blender and just give it a really good blend. And as it cools down, you can re-emulsify that. But if you just do it slowly, you won't have that problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split here into 3 for my 3 colors for the chocolate for decorating. And then I'm going to show you how to mix the powder, because we're going to mix all these. Now, previously, these are the colors I used before. So I'm just adding chocolate on top of chocolate, which is great. So you're not wasting anything. You can always reuse. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some more white chocolate here to my candy melter, and for filling up our actual molds. Now, if you're pouring your warm chocolate over some cold set chocolate, the warm is usually enough to melt what you've got. But if not, you can just pop it into the microwave for a couple of seconds, for about maybe 10 seconds, to just help melt any chunks that may be remaining. So I'm just going to mix all of these up first. I'm going to pop them all in the microwave, get them all nice and smooth. And then we're going to add in our colors. So I've got my 3 colors here. All my chocolates are all melted. So obviously all my colors are going to be slightly muted. I want a much more vibrant color. If you want milder colors, absolutely, you can keep it there. That's what's nice about working with white. Instead of getting the candy melts that you can get them in all the different colors, is to get the white, because then you can customize, make your colors as bright or as pastel as you would like. So I'm going to add in some red, my green, and some yellow. Get these suckers stirred up. And see how nice the oil colors just blend, no problems. Now, one thing, if you have oils, if you store them in a cool area, you may want to heat them up in the microwave for about 5 seconds first. If you have too much a temperature difference between them, it can shock your chocolate and cause it to seize. So I'm going to leave that because wanted to show you how to do the red powder with the shortening. So I'm going to add that to that. So just mix your colors until you get the appropriate color that you would like. You want to make sure to thoroughly mix them so that the colors fully come through and that they're thoroughly mixed in. Otherwise, they'll look streaky. You can get it little streaky. You don't want that. Okay, so now if you're making colors with powder, what you're first going to do is you're going to melt some shortening, which I've already gone and done. It's kind of already re-solidified a little bit, but that's okay. And you're going to take some of your powder and drop in about 1/4 of a teaspoon, 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon. And then we're just going to get our little spatula here and just mix that together. If need be, you can just remelt if it needs to be melted, but usually pretty okay. And that's it. And you mix your powdered with your shortening, and then we can add that into our color. Oops. Should probably hold on to that. And there we go. So now we've got all of our colors. But they're I want them a little bit thinner because, well, let me see. I'm going to do a quick test here. So I'm doing drizzle. Yeah, see, I'd like that a little thinner so that it'll drizzle easier. So we just take a little bit of our shortening. You just take about that much, throw her in, set around till it's melted. If it's not melting, then just heat up your chocolate for about 5-6 seconds. Because shortening melts at a higher point than chocolate. So sometimes it may not always melt. So I just heated up my chocolate there for about 7 seconds, just to get that shortening worked in. And you can see it starts to get thinner. So you can just add as much as you need. You want it thinner, add a little bit more in. And just to make things a little easier for myself, I'm just going to melt a little bit of shortening here just so I don't have to keep doing that over and over. All right, so I've just heated up my shortening here a little bit. It's still solid. We're in the solid form, but much more workable. So that's about what you want it to be. Okay, so I'm going to add some of this to my green and some to my yellow. And again, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, so I kind of know how much to add. Again, always add a little bit at a time. You can always add more. But if you make it too liquidy with this, you can actually just add in some more chocolate, help thicken that up. All right, so the one way that you can decorate your molds is to paint in them. So the way I do that 3-tone, I just paint 1/3 of the mold in each of the colors. So just like this. Now you want to make sure that it's coming out solid. If it's a little too thin, you want to let your chocolate cool a little bit so it just thickens up. And my other color, and then the green. And then if you want to paint, if you're fancy and you want to paint a design, you can use a smaller tip. I'll see if I can do this. They might be a little bit too loose, but I'll try. I'm going to try and do a flower. Just put a little yellow dot in the middle. And we want to make 5 dots. And then we want to throw in a little leaf, like so. And now if you want to do a dribble, you can just get a spoon. You just want to make sure that it's fluid enough. I'm going to get going, and then you kind of take off that excess, get it going, and then just go over your mold like so. And then just you repeat with your other colors. And then I'm also going to show you the dribbling or the drizzling with using the piping bag. And then how you can also design with that. Come on. Drip. That's why you have to make sure it's warm enough to be able to do that, like so. Now, the easiest way to put this stuff into piping bags, got it right here. Just take your piping bag, slide it into any tall cup. Get yourself a spatula and just plop her in like so. Take her, push her down, and just put a fold. And that's it. I'm just going to do my other color, and we'll come back and do that part. Now, the one thing is, once you put your chocolate into your piping bags, you can, don't worry, that's not going to be wasted. Just wait till it all hardens. You can just cut the bag open, peel it out, and put it back in your bowl to remelt. Oh, and the other thing you can also do is just leave them in there, and you can microwave them to heat them up in the bags. Just make sure to just flip your tip so it doesn't come oozing out when you heat it up. But either way, you can dump it back into the bowl or just leave it in the bags and reheat for later use. Okay, so to create the drizzle effect, we take our little piping bags here, and you're just going to cut a small hole. As I said, we can always cut a bigger one if need be. We just want it so it'll just be trickling out. Make sure none of your tips ended up in your mold. And then to do the drizzle, you're just going to very lightly add some pressure until it starts coming out, and just shake her around. So do all your colors first, whatever color. So do all my greens first. Now another effect you can do is to do like the drizzle, like those drizzle cakes. So kind of go around just kind of leave a space for your other colors to go in between. Just gently let that pour in and dribble down. And I'll take my yellow. And I'll do my red. Oh, that's not red, that's green. Let's do some reds. Okay, so then we're going to smack that down. And then flip it over to take out any excess. And you can just tap it, because we don't want those shells getting being too thick, because we now have to add our white over it. And then to clean off your top, take your offset spatula. Make sure it's clean. It's got a clean edge. And just clean off your top like so. So you have a nice clean edge. Okay, now I'm just going to grab my melted white. And first I've got to let these fully set. I'm not going to put them in the fridge because I don't want the mold to get too cold. So I'm going to let them just set at room temperature here, probably about 10-15 minutes, depending on how warm your place is. And once they're fully set, you'll know that because they're going to look hard. They're not going to look liquidy. So you can see like this one is already set here. So we're going to wait for that, and then we'll apply our white chocolate. first our first layer of our white chocolate, then we're going to make our truffles. Okay, so my molds, my chocolate has dried. My decoration chocolate is dried there. And now we're going to apply our first layer of our white, the shell. So what we're going to do is we're going to completely fill this up, and we're going to dump out all the excess onto our parchment paper here. Make sure there's nothing else on it, because we're going to reuse that white that falls onto here back into our pot for our tops, because we don't want to waste all of that. Alrighty. And you do want to work quickly because you need to get this in and settle and set and out before it gets too thick. And then we'll take it. You want to take it and you're going to smack it down. This is going to work out any air bubbles and settle that white into our decoration and help it melt in together. And then we're going to take our offset spatula and we're going to carefully scoop that off. Now, if you get too much color in, we're not going to reuse that into our white, but you can save it and we can use it in our truffle. You can use it in your truffles, or if you're using a darker color, you can always add that to make like a purple or any darker color. So you don't have to worry about wasting it. So, scrape that off and then we're going to dump them out. We want all the excess to come out. I'm trying to hold it. And you just gently tap it. And then once we're done, flip that over, get that out of the way. And you're just going to scrape off, again, across the top, so that our tops are nice and clean. And creates a nice edge for you. Again, I'm going to dump out some excess. So that is very important so we get that nice thin even shell. Okay, now I'm going to let these set up while we're going to make our truffle centers. And just give it one final smack down to work out any excess air bubbles. See, these two are a little bit too thick. The color that I put in, so I'm going to see if a little bit more will come out of that. That is better. And the reason you want that top of that mold clean is it's also going to help us be able to, when we remove our candies, to have a nice clean edge. So I'm just going to also set this set that aside to let it set, and I'm just going to peel it off, and I'm just going to use that as, like I said, filler for when I need darker colors. I can always use that. Alright, so for our cannabutter white chocolate truffles, what we're going to do is we're going to put our 225 grams of chocolate into a bowl over to the side here. And we are going to add our cream, our half a cup or 4 ounces of heavy cream to our pot. And we are going to add in our cannabutter. We're going to turn this on to medium-low, and we are going to stir this until it just begins to simmer. Now, it's very important. You do not want this to get too hot, because it will scorch your chocolate. Even though we're using the candy melts, you can still get things too hot and it can still scorch it. So as I said, I'm just going to continue. I'm just going to stir the cream and the butter here until it's melted and it begins to simmer, starting to bubble around the sides of the pot. Okay, so my cream and my butter have just started to simmer. So I'm just going to pour half of the mixture over the chocolate. And then I'm going to try and cover as much of the chocolate as I can with that. And we're just going to let that sit for about 3 to 5 minutes to let the chocolate completely melt first, like so. And then you would just gently move the cream over the chocolate. But as I said, we're not going to stir that yet. And you're going to need a whisk. Sorry, I kind of forgot that little piece in the equipment. It wouldn't be my videos if I didn't forget at least one thing. Oh, and then what I went ahead and did is in 3 separate bowls here for I put in some of my color already that we're going to be using for our for our truffles. Sorry. Now, if you just want to make it pure white, go ahead. You're not going to use any colors. Once you mix here, you're good to go. But if you do want to do that that colored effect inside your truffle, then just split out your colors ahead of time here. And our chocolate should be good. So you're going to whisk your cream and your butter and your chocolate till it starts to melt here and come together. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to stream in. Can't really do that. I need someone else to hold the bowl. Just going to stream in the rest of your cream and butter. And then continue to whisk that until you're completely smooth and it's going to be shiny and no chocolate lumps there. So you're going to be whisking for anywhere from about 2 to 5 minutes. I'm just going to move over the spoon now. Now you can also use a hand blender for this as well, which actually I'll pull out and you can have a look. Now, if you want to use a hand blender, you actually want to transfer it to something that's deeper so that the whole thing can go in if you didn't make a full amount here. So just give me a second. I'm going to transfer this over. Because you want to be able to completely submerge your stick there to reduce on air bubbles. And now, see, with the emulsifier or with the hand blender and emulsifying it like that, it just comes out so much creamier and nicer. So I'm going to evenly divide this into 3. And I'm just going to mix the colors up. And we're going to put them into, we're going to get the saran wrap. So now that my colors are all mixed up here, you're going to take some saran wrap, about that much, and try to lay it out flat. Then we are going to take one of our first truffle color, and you're just going to pour it kind of into a line here. And we're going to smush that up. What you're going to do is you're going to bring this over. Push this back. Seal off the ends there. Just make a couple of folds into it. You just kind of want to push it to the center like so. Then we are going to take our green color. Oops. A little close. You want to leave a little space there in between, kind of. And I'm going to pull this over like so. Do the same thing. Push up on it. Tighten that up. Squish in the ends. Push up on it. And we're going to roll these two together. Oops. Okay, I'm going to just do these two. I didn't have quite enough room for my red, so I'm just going to roll these two together. What you do is do it tight, and then take your ends and go like this. So it holds it nice and tight like that, and then just tuck it down. And then I'm just going to do a separate one for the red. If I did it long enough, I could put them all together, but it's not a big deal. Again, you want to push that over. Squish that down with your hand, back of your hand, just move it in with your fingers, flip her over. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to untuck those ends here, and I'm going to put that together. And I'm just going to roll all 3 of them together in the extra saran wrap, like so. And then I'm going to with the ends. And we're just going to let that sit until it just gets to root, till it's, actually it's quite cool. We just want it to cool because we don't want it to melt our chocolate, and actually that's pretty good to go. So I'm going to get my mold, and I'm going to get a larger piping bag that will hold on to that nicely. And I've used a larger tip, so I'm going to try a number 10 first. If that's not big enough, I'm going to switch it to a 12. Because what happens if your tip is too small, it'll take all your colors and just muddle them together. And that's not what you want to do. So we're going to take all our little colors here, and you're just going to snip the end here. And you want to make sure that everybody's snipped, so yellow didn't get in here. There we go. So we got all our colors coming out. And now you're going to slip this into your piping bag. Oh, that goes in nicely to the tip. We're going to make a fold here. And then I'm just going to get something, here's a paper towel here. And I'm just going to pipe this out until I'm getting make sure all 3 of my colors are coming. There we go. And then we are going to, and now when we pipe this in, you want to make sure to leave a little millimeter or 2 for creating the backs. You don't want to fill them too high. And then kind of put them in a circular motion. That way you'll get that color all the way through. See those cavities, how they didn't put much in? That's because they're too thick. Those wouldn't be good for serving. And we're just going to smack them down. I'm just going to get my offset here and remove excess on these ones. And I'm just going to let these, I'm going to put these in the fridge for 10 minutes to let the truffles set up a little bit, and then we're going to add the backs onto them. All right, so my truffles have set up here. Sorry, truffles, ganache, I always get the two mixed up. So they're set up here. So now I'm going to add on my backs here. So again, you're just going to go over each one. Doesn't have to be pretty because we're going to scrape off any excess. Come on, just enough. Just enough. Oh, just perfect. Check that out, not much left. And again, we're going to, shake that, take it around, smack it down, bring up any air bubbles. We're going to get our offset spatula, and if there's any little spots that are missing that are not fully, you just pull that over so that your edges are all covered. And if there are any air bubbles that don't break, you can use a toothpick or a bamboo skewer here just to break them. And again, we're going to wipe off the excess. So that's what happens if you fill the molds too high with the truffle, is you don't get enough of that backing on. And there we go. I'm going to put these into the fridge for about 25 to 30 minutes for them to fully set up, and then we'll pop them out and you'll see how gorgeous these are. So now it's time to unmask these puppies, these beauties. Let's see how gorgeous they turned out. Now, if you're kind of messy like me and couldn't completely get all of that chocolate off of the top, you may want to try to scrape it off. You can just do it with your nail if it's cold enough. It's not really necessary, but otherwise you're going to have to clean it. Just be easier to get the chocolates out. But anyway, just give them a little smack. Flip them over. And just work them out. So that's what I was saying, is if you've got that chocolate there, get some stuck in. But look at those. Look how gorgeous and shiny. I'll show them up close to you in just a minute when we get them all out. As I said, you want to wear the rubber gloves to avoid getting fingerprints on your candies while you're working with them. So you can either just use your thumbnail. If you don't have a nail, you can just use the flat end of a knife or your offset spatula. Now, if they come out like that and they've got that bottom there, not a big deal. Just going to get a sharp knife and it'll just come off like so. Just work your way down around. Another thing you can do too is you can also heat up your knife a little bit to make it a little bit easier to cut through. And just patiently, the ones that are stuck, just work off what's keeping them stuck in, and eventually get them all worked out. You just want to make sure to keep the area clear where your chocolates are coming out so you don't get little white flecks stuck to the tops. Now, if you've got a few that are not coming out, if they're a little bit stuck in the mold, just put it into the freezer for about 5 minutes, and that should help take care of these last ones. All right, let's see if I can get these fuckers out. Always got to be one that's got to cause us a problem. All right, there we go. Got them all out. So here we go. I made some eyeballs there for Halloween. And there you have it. Check those out. What do you think of the eyeballs? They look pretty cool, eh? Oh, and so I'm going to cut one of these also open for you. You can see what they look like inside. And check it out. Oops, look at that. Alright guys, so that was my tutorial there on how to make some designer cannabutter white chocolate truffles. If you have any questions at all, or any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to put them you know where. And I think that's all I've got for you today. So you have an awesome rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining.